Welcome into the first episode of The Floor is Yours here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. This is the natural extension of 5 on the Floor. What is crashing in the background? Is that what are they doing? Are they doing something at your place, Alf? What are they doing?
Oh, over here? Oh, we're cooking over here. Don't worry about
okay.
that. It's dinner time, Ethan.
Well, not here. I have a 5.5-year-old, so dinner time was 5:15. So that's already been conducted. It's actually bedtime, but I gave her an extra 30 minutes tonight. Welcome to the first episode of The Floor is Yours. This is the natural extension of our 5 on the Floor podcast. We appreciate you guys all following us. Basketball's coming back on July 31st, and so we've decided to expand the 5 on the Floor brand. So in addition to Alf and me and Alex, who will be here, I think, at some point tonight, we're going to have other contributors here, but we're also going to have other platforms that we're introducing in addition to our website, 5reasonsports.com. We've got some new writers on the site. You guys really should check out. I mean, obviously, Greg Sylvander is always there, but and Nikias Duncan. But we just added Janelle Moore has a new piece about the 4 teams in the NBA that are kind of the wild card teams that nobody's really talking about. The Heat are one of them, and that's actually where we're going to start tonight, is how they've been kind of overlooked. But one of the things we want to do on this show that's very different from our podcast is we want to take questions. So on the podcast, it's just us talking. Sometimes we bring on a sponsor. I bring on a guest. Like I had Jared Greenberg this week, and last week I had Sam Amick. But on this, you're the guest. So we want to take your questions, especially on the YouTube channel. Send them to us, and we will try to answer them as best as we can. And we're going to try to do it expeditiously in 30 minutes so we get you in and we get you out. Let's start here. And I know people, Alf, want to talk about DeMarcus Cousins and Bradley Beal and Victor Oladipo. We're going to get to all of that. But I want to get what are you cooking? We want to get to
Is it that loud?
It's loud, yeah, it's loud. It's echoing. But the first thing we want to get to tonight is just the way that the Heat are being perceived as everything comes back, because ESPN just came out with something, and I feel like this is a common refrain here, but ESPN came out with something basically saying they gave, I guess, 100% so Milwaukee was going to make it to the conference finals. And then you had Boston, Toronto, Philadelphia, and then Miami at roughly 2% had them in the conference finals. I just went to BetDSI today, and it's at 880 to 100. So basically, you put down $100, you win 880 if they get to the conference finals. Hello, Alex. And that's kind of.
I like those odds. I thought that was if they get out of the East.
That's what I mean. Oh, is it out of the East? Maybe that's out of the East.
I thought it was to get to the conference finals.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was to get out of the East. Well, either way,
you're talking about the BetDSI odds.
Yeah, the BetDSI odds were to get to get out of the East, but you're right. The other one was to get to the conference finals. Either way, guys, nobody believes in this team, and I think the honest thing to me is that anybody can make odds at all, because you look at Twitter today. And Nikola Jokic is half of himself. James Harden is half of himself. Other guys are going to come back fat. I don't know how you base predictions on what happened the first 65, 66 games of the season when everybody's going to be in a different place right now. Seems odd.
Well, that's exactly it. So if you're going to go off of what happened this season, Miami, outside of Boston, I mean, wrecked the top half of the East. The only issue they had was with Boston. So to put Miami below Philly after what they beat Philly 3-1 this year. Mm-hmm. I think they were 2-0 against the Bucks, 2-0 against the Raptors. I mean, they mollywopped the entire Eastern Conference. So mm-hmm. I don't know why Miami's down at 2.9% underneath Philly. Mm-hmm. Who was they the 6th seed when COVID hit, and in a downward trend. So now, right. and Philly, the problem with Philly wasn't health. They were better when they were unhealthy. when one of the guys was off the floor, they were actually a better team when Embiid or Simmons couldn't play. So the fact that team isn't healthy doesn't scare me at all as a fan of the Heat. And Miami. When that team was healthy, when Myers Leonard was in the starting lineup and Jimmy Butler could play, that was one of the best starting lineups in the entire league.
Right.
So Miami is 100% healthy. They have their bench. They have Tyler Hero. So I think what I think everyone just forgot, because the Heat went on a little slide towards towards the beginning of when the suspension of the season, or right after the suspension of the season, the Heat went on a little slide. So I think a lot of pundits that watch the NBA kind of have just discounted them, but they're not really looking at the season as a whole.
They went back to where they were before the season started, how they perceived Miami before the season started.
And that's a great thing for Miami.
It's terrific. And here's two things I tweeted today that got a lot of traction. One thing is, one is opinion and one is fact. The one that's fact is I found out from 3 sources today that there are a bunch of NBA players, this has been reported by Woj and others, that are upset with some of the protocols in Orlando. We've discussed that. I was told that includes, it's about 40 to 50 players, and that includes none of the Miami Heat. What I was told by everybody was they're all in. And one of the things I was told by one person was, when Jimmy tells you to get your ass in shape, you get your ass in shape. And so I think, if anything, Alex, Miami's odds have gotten better from the break. Because if you're going to leave players to their own devices for 3 months, but still have them engaged with the team, I would rather have this, I hate to do it, quote unquote culture guiding them when they're not here than some of these other teams, like, say, Philadelphia. Is anybody in Philadelphia listening to Brett Brown during this break? Okay?
No.
So I'm going to look, and I know people can say, well, Waiters and JJ didn't come back in shape. Well, Waiters, JJ, Hassan are not here anymore. Mm-hmm. They got the group they wanted that will work. And I think, and the second thing, so that's about conditioning. But the second thing is they all want to play. That's what I've been told. And I know that's not the case on some other teams. So I think all of that is positive for Miami.
Yeah, the only thing I really took issue with was just how far ahead those odds were for the Sixers compared to the Heat. Like, I get why they would kind of put the Celtics and Raptors that high. I think that they kind of proved that they were probably the second and third best teams in the East all year. But the Sixers, like, what? The Heat beat them 3 out of 4 times. They had a better record all season. Everything you guys just said, like, that made no sense to me. And I would bet on those odds. Like, even though I might not actually pick the Heat to make it to the conference finals, like 4% or 5%, whatever those odds were, it just seems way too low. Like, I would take those if the odds are something similar.
And isn't there an assumption there, Alf, that if you're making the odds that low, the assumption is you're in Milwaukee's bracket, right? But we don't know that Miami's going to be in Milwaukee's bracket. Miami can get to 3 still. It's going to be difficult. And they could also slip to 6 if things don't break right. So they may not be in the Bucks bracket for sure. So I don't count on any of that. But again, I go through the roster. I'm thinking to myself, who's going to come back out of shape? Jimmy? No. Myers Leonard? No. Kendrick Nunn has worked this hard to get where he is? No. We'll get to Tyler in a second.
Tyler's been working out. Tyler's
been working out.
Yes, cardio.
He has been working out. Yeah, that's true. All of that is accurate. But you look at. So I love you. But you look at the rest of this group. Iguodala kept himself in shape for 8 months without playing, right? And then Jay Crowder, a guy that's going to get out of shape? No. Derek Jones, a guy who's gotten his break, now going to get out of shape? No. None of these guys. I mean, none of them.
He's physically incapable of gaining weight anyway, so
he can't. And
I saw his high school mixtape today. It was on Twitter, and it was ridiculous because Tony Fiorentino retweeted it. He looks exactly the same as he did in high school, which is wild.
Yeah, he can't. You're right. He can't put on any weight. All of these guys have had to work their way to where they are. And so I don't know that any of them is going to be entitled. They don't have any entitled guys on this team. So I just don't see it. And you've got 4 guys on this team that are playing for new contracts who want to stay where they are. So it's not like they're playing for more money somewhere else. They want to prove to the team, whether it's Dragic, Myers, DJJ, or Jay Crowder, they want to prove that they're going to be here. To me, the Heat, and I think, again, everybody is sleeping on Miami nationally. I don't know if they have enough talent to make a run.
That's a good
But
comment.
I do think they're going to be in a better position. Yes, whatever, like Benjamin says, whatever Jokic is on, we need JJJ on the opposite. How many pounds do you think Jokic lost? It looks like
it has to be 50 to 60 pounds.
60 pounds.
Insane.
I was going to say 40, yeah.
It's 40 to 60 pounds. It's insane.
But why, though? That's what I don't understand. Like, what is it that he's – I mean, he wasn't a guy that was, like, on HGH anyway. Like, so I don't get it. Like,
it doesn't make sense, and he's not playing basketball regularly anymore. Like, I don't understand. Like, it has to be a new diet. Like, it has to be, right?
He's on that keto.
Yeah,
A
I
lot
know
of
some
people want us to address the Cousins rumor, and
we're gonna get to it now. Why don't we do it? Let's do it.
Let's go, because I think a lot of people are talking. They want to talk about Cousins, and they also want to talk about free agency, which is what everyone always wants to talk about. So I want to ask you guys, because
Yep.
I've not been following this. I've been more involved in other things, as everybody who follows me on Twitter knows. I've barely tweeted about basketball. I've been more occupied with light skin opinions and Black Lives Matter and all this other stuff. If you want to hear my opinions on that stuff, listen to Light Skin Opinions. Follow me on Twitter. It's full of that stuff. But I want to know, can they sign Cousins for the playoffs? Like, is that possible, or is that like some weird pipe dream?
I think it's a pipe dream. I haven't gotten any indication that the I mean, there was still the clause where he could remain with the Lakers, and there was a report today that he may end up helping the Lakers in the playoffs. So it seems odd to me. I know that Pat has had a fascination with him for forever. Obviously, he's a Kentucky guy, and Pat, he is exactly the prototype of the player that Pat brings in to rehabilitate the career. There's no question, in every conceivable way. He is the prototype. He's also offensively a pretty good fit next to Bam. Now, defensively, he's a sieve, but it is what it is. But I don't think the Lakers, my understanding all along on this has been that the Lakers had no intention of letting him actually leave. LeBron wants him there.
But didn't they drop him for somebody?
But they dropped him. But the clause, the way the Bobby Marks described it, and I'll have to go back and look at it, he could still be there this season. I have to look at exactly how this plays out. But I haven't gotten any indication, people I've talked to, that Miami thinks this is a serious thing that's going to happen. So I don't, when I get other information, I'll adjust to it. But to this point,
it seems like it was never a rumor, anyways, right? Like, it was just Ira answering a question on one of his Ask Ira.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Ira, has a lot of platforms, and he gets asked these questions, and on whether it's radio or there, and he'll respond.
And then it gets aggregated from there.
And it becomes a story. And I don't, and then sometimes he gets upset at me for running with something he said that, he maybe it was taken out of context. So I don't know exactly what he meant. I do know it got a couple days life because there's nothing else to talk about. DeMarcus Cousins for next year is an interesting prospect.
Yeah.
Right.
Get him into your training camp.
Right.
Get him, get him into your system for a whole summer. And see if he has something to offer, like a la Eddie Curry or Greg Oden, that kind of thing.
Right.
But honestly, I think he's better. I think with no rehabilitation, he's better than both of those guys. But you can't count on him. Like, he's not a guy you can count on. I think he'd be a nice. That would be something. You're going up against the 76ers, and you want to combat Embiid. Like, that's a nice option to have. Right, but I think the Heat. I think the Heat have enough against the 76ers this year. But like you said, it is an option if you could have him for a full training camp.
Right.
Completely ingrain him into your culture. I know you hate that word, but right. I think what's going on right now is just not enough time. It's just it would be a weird situation.
And again, I don't even know that it's feasible because I don't really think he ends up leaving LA, and I don't know where he is health. There's not one injury he's coming back from. There's two significant injuries. Benjamin has a comment about Serge Ibaka. That's an interesting option, too. So is Kyle Lowry, by the way, if we're talking about this sort of short-term stuff. But look, Cousins is a Riley reclamation project, so no question. But I don't think it happens this year. I'll look into some of the specifics of it a little bit more carefully. Let's get to the next thing. There was another report, and it's like this is like a water is wet report. I don't know why the national guys have been so far behind on this. I mean, it's been pretty damn clear for a long time that the Heat's priorities are in order. Long-term, Giannis, Beal, Oladipo.
Yep.
What has changed? Nothing has changed, and except Beal signing the extension, which took him out of the picture here a little bit. We've talked about this stuff for more than a year, and now I feel like it's like Shams tweets it. And again, I have great respect for Shams, but it's like all of a sudden this is a story that's who the Heat are targeting, and they're telling people this. I guess the only news here is that they would be telling somebody, right? Because technically you're sort of treading on the tampering line there. But like, I don't, why is this a surprise? I mean, the Heat are going to have cap space. Giannis is arguably the best player in the world right now, or he's certainly top 3. And Oladipo has a relationship with Dwayne. The Heat loved him before the draft. He's a Heat culture type guy. And it's clear that Indiana, with everything that's going on there with Herb Simon and with their ownership and everything, probably not going to afford him. So, yeah. But was there news there? Did I miss news?
No. I think all that's happened is that it's a slow, outside of everything going on at Disney and everything else, like it's just one of those things where it's almost like one of those common sense things that you can call a report because it's like so many people have been talking about this for so long, and maybe the Oladipo thing is new to people outside of Miami.
Right.
I mean, but we've been talking about Oladipo for how long, Alex? Like I feel like Oladipo has always been a more realistic target than Giannis or Beal. Because we all know the connection that Oladipo has down here because of Dwayne and because of everything he trains down here. Beal has a lot of connections. Giannis has a connection to Bam. But above anybody, Oladipo has always been the guy that has more connections than anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's only been news, like you said, because of the people who, don't really pay attention to what's been going on and Heat rumors, right? Oladipo that's a new thing, right? It hasn't really been nationally that much traction about Oladipo getting moved in the first place. All you've really seen with him since he got into the Pacers is what a nice story. He's been great. So I think that's kind of new to people outside of Miami. Other than that, it's just more of, people outside of here looking at the national media talking about how the Heat are pursuing somebody. Like, I kind of understand why people kind of make jokes about it a little bit. Because, like, yeah, we can really pursue whoever we want. But
to me, Depot is the somebody asked percentages on who they sign. Depot to me gets the highest percentage. Like if you're going to do it out of 100, like Depot is like 66%. And the other guys are in the 15, 16, 17% ratio. Like,
I agree with you, Al, for this reason, because with Giannis, you're dealing with, and I know that this came across in the comments about how he said he wants his kids to grow up in Milwaukee. I mean, a lot of guys are going to say things in the heat of the moment.
He wants his kids to grow up safe in Milwaukee.
Right, safe. Well, yeah, better chance.
Safe anywhere is cool.
Right, but Milwaukee has a bunch of issues in that area. Okay, also, and so. Maybe that's not the best place, to be honest. But
I mean, you want to talk about Milwaukee? Remember what happened like a year and a half ago with the Bucks player, with Sterling Brown?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Milwaukee has a reputation. I mean, it's not Boston, but it has a reputation, and it's not Utah.
It's Boston. Not great when it happened to a teammate.
No, it's not. And so, but look, he's going to say what he has to say now, and I do believe he means it in his heart. I think with Giannis, it's not. I don't think there's any deception like there was with LeBron leaving. I think with Giannis, he honestly believes he wants to stay there, deliver a championship there. But I think there may just be a flashpoint where he realizes Chris Middleton's not good enough as the number 2. And so, I think that's where this headed. But Oladipo, I had a conversation. First thing, I love that dude. He's one of my top 5 players in the NBA to interview. He's just a really nice person. He was since he came to the league. And I had a long conversation with him in Orlando 3 years ago about how much he respected the Heat organization, wanted Orlando to model themselves after the Heat. This is right after he broke in the league. This is not a surprise. Now, I think it's the most likely because I think with Beal, Beal seems to want to make this thing work in Washington. I don't think Oladipo has that same tie to Indiana. I just don't. And so whatever the relationship is now, that this budding relationship between Beal and Bam, I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. It says, this question comes in, would the Heat go after AD if the Lakers don't win the title?
Of course.
I mean, this.
Yes. Is water wet?
But here, I think what people have to realize is we don't know what the cap is going to be.
That's a whole other thing. So, like, you're talking about Oladipo and Giannis. I don't know if the Heat are going to be able to afford that, no matter how much cap space. Which is strange, right? Because you start thinking if the Heat cap space position has been compromised because of COVID, what's happened to these other teams that are like borderline to be able to sign a max player? Like everybody's going to be hurting.
Out. I agree, out, but this is where that changes. Remember, you can sign your own guys over the cap, and so. If they don't smooth the cap significantly, if the hit really comes in the first 2 years, look, the hit had already started with China, okay? And I was told, with everything that happened with Daryl Morey's comments, and I was told that basically playing these games out will allow the league to recover all but about 15% from this year, okay? Okay, still, that's 15%. They already took a hit from China. It's huge. So if that's the case, the question is, how do you smooth that out? But I think what it leads to is more guys staying put because It's just let's just run it back. Let's just run it back. And that's why I think when we look at next year, I really do think it's we bring back Myers, we bring back Goran, we bring back DJJ is the wild card to me. I think it depends on how he plays and where KZ Okpala is.
Man.
And Jay is another question too. But I also think it's, Miami, I think, will look around and say, okay, and here's what may end up happening. They may make some of their guys wait while they look around who springs free. So they may look to see, does Kyle Lowry want to come down and take a shot down here in Miami? Okay, and maybe, or DeMar DeRozan, maybe not DeRozan, but maybe Lowry. I'd rather have Lowry. But and maybe we tell Myers and Goran and these guys, look, we're going to wait this out, okay? The other thing to consider is, I was watching it today, Carnival stock, you guys should take this seriously. Carnival stock had rebounded from about 8 to 10, I think it was, when the Saudis bought some of it. They bought 8%. It rebounded up to about 24, and today it crashed back down to 17. Let's see how the second wave of COVID hits, because it's hitting already.
Yeah, it's starting.
Okay, it's starting.
Is it even a second wave if the first wave never went down?
The first wave was never addressed. So
I don't know if we're at the second wave yet.
So if the first wave, if we end up with just an extended thing, or let's put it this way, if the NBA, if things get really bad and we're up at 200,000 deaths, and the NBA just decides with everything else that's going on, we can't go forward, that changes the dynamic too. There's still uncertainty, even though
there's a lot of uncertainty. So there's a lot of the things that we're discussing that just seem even silly to even discuss. Because it's who knows? You're talking about Oladipo and Giannis. They might not be able to afford their own guys in a year and a half. It's just so random, because we are in such unprecedented times. So my thing, I would love for Heat fans to, instead of looking towards 2021, which I know I'm asking so much. Yes, break out the Clorox and hydroxychloroquine. Instead of Heat fans looking forward, look at this year. If Heat fans, because Heat Twitter believes that the Heat are going to the finals, they're out of control. Or at least,
and that they're getting Giannis.
Yeah, but my thing is, but you have the same Heat fans are like, I don't want Oladipo. Okay, listen. If you think the Heat are good enough to get to the conference finals right now, add Oladipo to this team, right?
Right.
Stop being stupid. All right, stop being dumb. Oladipo in the lineup over Kendrick Nunn. How much better are you as a team? So I think Heat fans kind of need to put everything in perspective right now. Let's figure out what's going on this season. I would much rather talk about, and even this season's hard to predict, but predicting cap space in the future off of what's going on right now is a complete crapshoot. Absolute crapshoot.
Well, and that's why when we went through the 5 guys on the Heat who had the most at stake, and then I did the 5 guys with Jared Greenberg in the NBA, some of these, it's hard to even really say, because, okay, so right now, one of his 5 was Brett Brown. And that one makes some sense, okay, because obviously, but then, do you even evaluate Brett Brown on what's going to be happening now? I don't know.
Yes, you do. Honestly, this is especially when you evaluate Brett Brown.
Right.
Because if he couldn't keep his players in line, if Embiid comes in out of shape, if they're not listening to him, if they come in a complete mess, right? Who is the onus on, right? You have to look at somebody. First of all, they're gonna if they're like a first round or a second round exit, they're gonna blow that team up.
Well, Elton Brand might not be the guy making the decisions. We were having this. Jared and I had this conversation where they kind of shifted the power there and gave Brett Brown a little bit more during the season to sort of see if he could figure it out.
We thought it was going the other way.
No, we thought it was going the other way. Jared reported, and it was Brett Brown who wanted Al Horford out of the starting lineup.
Embiid is going to look like Shaq right now, by the way. Someone said Embiid's going to look like Jokic. Embiid is going to look like Shaq. I'm talking about now. I'm not talking about Shaq on the Celtics. I'm talking about
Embiid's going to look like Jokic used to look, not like
Jokic maybe that's what they bet.
That's and then we've got our friend Taco on there. Ben Simmons is Jack and solve all their problems. We have no idea how these guys are going to go back. But all right. So we've talked to Oladipo. Obviously, Bradley Beal's another one we want to get into, like an orbit. Bradley Beal's another one we got to get into because Washington is in the playoffs for now. They're sort of in the purgatory of the playoffs, right? They have an opportunity to make the playoffs. Do you guys think it makes any difference? Because I don't think Washington was catching anybody before, but now they just have to get within 4 games of Orlando or Brooklyn, and they
can beat Orlando.
And they'll be in a play-in situation.
And Brooklyn, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, shit. You think Milwaukee wants to see Bradley Beal in a first-round series?
Nobody's afraid of Dinwiddie in a 1-game playoff. Like I'm being completely honest with you. I like Dinwiddie. I like him. He's a good player. But
I mean that's
LeVert, of course.
Exactly. Like nobody's afraid of those guys in a 1-game playoff. It's just nobody's worried about that shit.
Well, does it change the dynamic at all? If Bradley Beal goes off in this playoff run, does Washington look at their situation? I mean, they want to keep him anyway, but does it become less likely that he springs free?
Okay, I'm going to address Fez Butter. KD is not coming back.
Not back. He's not coming back.
Everybody, he's not playing this year.
Neither is Kyrie.
Well, we knew Kyrie doesn't like basketball. So
Kyrie doesn't. Wow. He's really worried about if the Earth is round or not. And this whole SpaceX thing has really put into question his entire belief system. John
Wall's not coming back either.
Not coming back either. So my thing is, if Bradley Beal goes off in a first-round series, does it make it less likely that he stays in Washington? If he's just like, if he goes off, if he does Dwayne Wade in 2009 versus the Celtics, or 2010, I can't remember which year it was, 2010 versus Celtics, does he look at it like, or does he do the Dwayne Wade thing, like if you don't get me help, I'm leaving?
No, because I don't think the circumstance changes because I think he's been pretty clear with them all along that he was in for the rebuild process. I mean, it's not like they've added anybody. The thing with Beal that's odd to me is that the whole thing with him and John Wall has flipped. Supposedly, and a lot of this was true, the issue that Beal had before was he and Wall didn't really get along that well. And now Beal's waiting for Wall to get back healthy. Mm-hmm. So it's confusing.
Saw them at Summer League sitting together. They seem to be friends off the court now, and that was like the opposite earlier on. And I think that's what he's waiting for, right? Like if the reason he signed that extension is to basically just wait till next season when Wall is back. You know, they got Bertans there. He's going to be a role player. They got some young guys who will be solid rotation players. That has to be what he's selling himself on at this point. Whether it's a good sell or not, that has to be it because I just can't imagine what else it is.
Well, the problem with it, Alex, is he's too good to allow them to get bad enough. So they're always going to be stuck bottom lottery. And so they're never going to get a build-around player other than himself. And Washington, tell me the last premium free agent that Washington or Chicago has signed.
I don't even think it's about that. You're right, though. I just think he basically just looks at it as next season, we're back in the playoffs. We're back in the mix. I think that's basically what it comes down to. And, we've got Wall back. They're going to have, the team more or less healthy. I think it's just an optimistic sell for a playoff team at this point.
Maybe.
Honestly,
now Ramon says Gilbert Arenas. Was Arenas traded there? I thought he was
traded.
I thought he was traded from Golden State.
I don't remember.
Golden State, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember Gilbert being a free agent signing.
No.
But I believe that he's going to do the Dwayne Wade thing where he's going to go crazy in a playoff series. They lose in 5 games. Mm-hmm. And that frustration, you guys remember how frustrated Dwayne was after that playoff series. Like he was sick 2 years in a row, played his ass off, and like he's looking at Michael Beasley for help. Like who? Like wait, so let's think this out. Who is Beal going to turn to? After he drops 50 and they're down 10 in the fourth, like Thomas Bryant. Like who's he looking to? Like help me, please.
No, and they didn't even keep Satoransky, who was a productive player for them last year. I mean, they've basically
you can't even name their second best player.
No, they've gotten by with total gimmicks. That roster, you talk about Miami's roster. That roster is every bit as bad as that Miami roster. And yes, I was in Boston for that series, and I remember talking to Dwayne before that game. And one of the things he'd said was, well, maybe if we get something from bees, and he kind of rolled his eyes, and they got nothing from bees. And that's kind of what happened. And he had enough. I mean, he had enough. And But at least, and I feel like they had wasted his prime, so we talked about that. All right, last thing here, and thanks for everybody for participating tonight. We're going to do this every Thursday night.
By the way,
go ahead,
I looked it up, and Gilbert Arenas did sign with the Wizards as a restricted free agent. Apparently, I think they didn't match it or something. And also, I forgot my second point, so keep going.
No problem. No, it's good. Thanks, Ramon. We appreciate
that. Was actually Ramon. Thank you for that. That was
thank you, and you can check out his work on our site too. Something we talked about here was Janelle Moore's article on our site, and she had some other teams that she thought could be surprises. I want to talk about one in the Western Conference, Portland. Do you give them any chance to, no. quote unquote, make some noise out there?
No. They've built their season on relying on guys like Hassan Whiteside and Carmelo Anthony. I don't believe they're going to do anything. CJ McCollum hasn't done much. I don't see that he's going to come back and become a different player. I think they've lost a lot of their mojo, whatever you want to call it. I don't know these. I know it's intangibles. I know we don't believe in intangibles anymore. We're a new analytic society, but there's something like Portland. They didn't even want to come back and do the season the way. I just feel like they're just not into it. Like they know they're not ready. They're not there, and I just feel like they've kind of checked out already. Like if they might not make the playoffs because of all. I feel like teams like the Pelicans cherish that 8th seed so much more than the Trailblazers do. They don't. I don't think they care that much.
This is a good one. You know what? Let's finish with this. Benjamin says, "Bro, Hassan will be DNP at SeaWorld." Is he? Let's close with this. Is Hassan most likely to leave the quarantine space? Because this came out today. I should mention this, by the way. I thought I might go cover some games in Orlando. I don't think that's happening. They're forcing the media, and for good reason, they're forcing the media to stay in the bubble for 3.5 months and not be allowed to leave because they can't be tested. So it's possible they might let some quote-unquote tier 2 media go up for a couple games, but not talk to anybody, not talk to players, not talk to executives, not talk to anybody, not talk to coaches, and then come back. But they're also quarantining all the players. Some of the players I've already heard are not happy about it, but it's what you got to do. Is Hassan, if Hassan is most likely to leave the bubble, who's second? Dion?
Oh no, Dion's not even in the bubble. Is he even going to be
He's in the bubble. He's on the Lakers.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
It's been so long. I don't even blame you, Alex. It's been a minute, and it's so much.
I'm out of touch, man. I mean, I was gonna say Portland is if they can get Nurkic and Zach Collins back, that would be nice. But other than that, I don't trust them at all.
The second most likely player is the guy that chases Hassan Whiteside as he follows a fucking penguin off the Disney reservation. There's gonna be some animal that gets loose from Animal Kingdom, and Whiteside's gonna Snapchat it, and end up somewhere in downtown Orlando and not realize where he is. And poor Carmelo Anthony, who's assigned with keeping tabs on him, is going to be following him out there.
I'm trying to follow the comments, but I have a stranger behind me. Hold on. Somebody crawled out of bed in the middle of the night.
There she is.
There she is. There she is. Say hi.
Everybody, that's the CEO of 5 Reasons Sports right there.
She makes all the decisions. James Johnson delivers to Orlando, no problem. All right, with that, we're going to close. Check out 5 Reasons Sports. I got to go because I got to get this one to sleep.
Honestly, if Sasha made more of the decisions, we'd be more successful. So.
No, I
don't want you to put this on her. I don't want you to.
There's no question. Here, come here. Say hello since you crawled out of bed. Say hello. Okay. All right. Good night. 5reasonsports.com. 5 on the floor. 3 new episodes next week. New contributors. Check out everything on the website. Good night.
Good night.